Unexpected encounter. Captain Nolan Reed squinted at the scanner readings aboard his ship, the Meridian. The vessel was more of a retrofitted cargo hauler than a proper exploration craft. But it was his, patched panels and questionable modifications included. The Orion debris field stretched before him, a graveyard of derelict ships and broken satellites. Well, at least nothing's exploding today, he muttered to himself, immediately regretting the words. Space had a way of making ironic jokes at one's expense. He'd been drifting through the debris for hours, hoping to find salvageable parts to trade at the next spaceport. The Meridian's engine hummed steadily, recycled air filling his lungs with the familiar scent of metal and ozone. Then he saw a faint blip on the scanner. Not random debris, but something emitting a biological signature. Please don't be space pirates, Nolan whispered, adjusting his course. As he maneuvered closer, the scanner revealed a small escape pod, systems barely functioning, but clearly preserving something alive inside. Against his better judgment, Nolan engaged the retrieval beam. The pod clicked into place in his cargo hold with a reassuring thunk. He grabbed his blaster just in case and made his way down. The pod hissed open, revealing a woman floating in suspended animation. At first glance, she appeared human, with delicate features and copper-colored hair. But as the pod's preservation field dissipated, Nolan noticed the differences. Her skin had a subtle iridescence, shifting colors like an oil slick in sunlight, and her eyes, when they fluttered open, were entirely silver with no visible pupils. Hello? Nolan ventured, keeping his distance. The woman blinked, adjusting to consciousness. She observed him with those unsettling silver eyes, tilting her head in a motion too fluid to be human. Mine, she said simply, her voice resonating with a musical quality that made the air vibrate. Nolan took a step back. Excuse me? She floated effortlessly out of the pod, defying the ship's artificial gravity. You rescued me. I claim you. Mine. Look, I think we have a misunderstanding, Nolan said, holstering his blaster. I just found your pod. I'm not. I am Tessa, she interrupted, though Nolan suspected she was simplifying her name for his benefit. You saved me. By the laws of my people, that makes you mine to protect. Nolan ran a hand through his disheveled brown hair. That's not how things work for humans. Tessa's skin rippled with colors, settling into a warm amber glow. Your understanding is irrelevant. The claim has been made. Over the next few hours, Tessa explored the Meridian with unnerving grace. Touching control panels and examining equipment with childlike curiosity, she moved as if gravity was merely a suggestion, floating when convenient, walking when it suited her. Shh, your vessel, she observed. Running iridescent fingers along a console, it speaks to you. It's just the ship's computer, Nolan explained. Watching her nervously as she hovered near the navigation system, no, Tessa insisted. It sings. Like mine sings to me. That night, as the Meridian drifted through the silent void, Nolan tried to sleep in his quarters while Tessa perched near the viewport, her skin glowing softly in the darkness as she watched the stars. Mine, she whispered, glancing at his restless form. Safe now. Nolan stared at the ceiling, wondering what cosmic joke the universe was playing on him. He'd been alone for so long, and now he had been claimed by a woman who wasn't quite human, whose very presence made the air feel charged with something he couldn't name. He didn't realize then that his lonely life had just become infinitely more complicated, infinitely more extraordinary. Cultural confusion morning arrived, or what passed for morning in the endless dark of space, with Nolan finding Tessa hovering cross-legged in the center of the bridge, her skin shifting through shades of blue and purple as she hummed a melody that made the ship's instruments flicker in response. Do you have to float everywhere? Nolan asked, pouring himself a cup of synthetic coffee. Tessa turned midair, silver eyes glinting with amusement. Walking is inefficient. Mine should learn to embrace the void. Mine has a name, he retorted. It's Nolan. Yes, Nolan mine, she agreed, as if this were a perfectly reasonable compromise. Over breakfast nutrient paste for him. Curious examination of said paste for her, Nolan attempted to establish boundaries. Look, I appreciate that saving you means something to your people, but on my ship, We need rules. Tessa sampled his coffee without asking, her skin briefly flashing yellow at the bitter taste. Rules. Curious human concept. You create limitations to feel safe. I create limitations so you don't accidentally vent us into space, Nolan countered. Before Tessa could respond, the ship's alarm blared. Nolan rushed to the console to find multiple vessels approaching elegant ships with hulls that seemed to ripple like liquid metal, similar to Tessa's skin. Your people? He asked nervously. Tessa's expression brightened. They honor the claim. Recognition ceremony begins. What ceremony? Nolan's voice cracked slightly. When one claims another, witnesses must acknowledge the bond, she explained, floating to the communications array. It strengthens the protection. The next few hours were chaos. The Meridian's communications system, overloaded with messages in a language that made Nolan's translator sputter. Tessa responded with melodic phrases that seemed to involve his name with various musical inflections. They wish to dock, she informed him. The Eldermost must see you. Absolutely not, Nolan protested. My ship can't handle visitors, especially not a delegation of whatever you are. Tessa's skin darkened to a deep indigo. Refusing the Eldermost dishonors the claim. It suggests you reject my protection. Yet you need it, she said simply, floating closer until her face was inches from his. Your ship leaks atmosphere in 3 places. Your navigation system is failing. Your heart beats alone. Nolan stepped back, unnerved by her accuracy. Fine. 1 representative. No ceremonies. Tessa smiled, her skin shifting to a pleased coral hue. 3 representatives. Small ceremony. 2 representatives. No ceremony, he countered. 2 representatives. Minimal ceremony, she conceded, skin rippling with amusement. The docking procedure was tense. 2 figures entered the Meridian Tull. Iridescent beings with the same fluid grace as Tessa, but with more elaborate patterns shifting across their skin. They spoke in musical tones, circling Nolan with unblinking silver eyes. Tessa responded, occasionally gesturing to different parts of the shipband, to Nolan himself with evident pride. What are they saying? He whispered. They approve, Tessa translated. They say you are sturdy for such a fragile species. Thanks. One of the visitors produced a small, glowing orb and presented it to Nolan. When he reluctantly accepted it, the sphere melted into his skin with a warm sensation. What the hell was that? He yelped. Tessa's single quotes as skin glowed with satisfaction. Recognition complete. The fleet will know you are mine. You are protected throughout the 7 systems. As the visitors departed, Nolan stared at his unmarked hand where the orb had disappeared. Tessa, what exactly does being yours entail? He asked carefully. She tilted her head, considering. It means your survival matters to me above all others. It means I will shield you from harm. It means you are not alone. For someone who had drifted solo through space for years, those words hit Nolan harder than he expected. Cosmic Bonds days passed aboard the Meridian with Tessa's presence transforming Nolan's once predictable routine into something extraordinary. She continued to float where walking would suffice and touch controls that were better left alone, but Nolan found himself growing accustomed to her curious ways. Your ship requires maintenance, Tessa observed one morning, her skin pulsing with diagnostic patterns as she hovered near a control panel. The oxygen recyclers are functioning at 63% efficiency. Nolan looked up from his star charts. How could you possibly know that? I listen, she said simply. Without warning, she pressed her iridescent palm against the panel. The lights flickered momentarily before stabilizing into a brighter glow. What did you just do? Nolan rushed over, checking the readouts. Shared energy. Temporary fix. Her skin dimmed slightly. My people can transfer life force to compatible systems. Nolan stared at the readings. Oxygen efficiency now at 92%. That's actually impressive. A faint smile touched Tessa's lips. Mine appreciates. Good. Later that day, as they navigated toward the Kalen trading outpost, the Meridian shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the console. Proximity mine, Nolan muttered, recognizing the energy signature. Must be pirates in the sector. Before he could engage evasive maneuvers, Tessa moved with impossible speed. Her body elongated, flowing between him and the control panel as a second explosion rocked the ship. Her skin hardened, transforming from iridescent softness to something crystalline and protective. "Mine will not be damaged," she stated, her voice resonating through her transformed body. Nolan watched in amazement. As she extended tendrils of her crystalline form to the ship's defense systems, interfacing directly with the controls, the Meridian's ancient shields strengthened, deflecting a third impact. "Pirate vessel approaching," the ship's computer announced. "Can you handle the shields while I man the weapons?" Nolan asked. Tessa's form rippled with affirmation. "Protect together." The skirmish was brief but intense. With Tessa augmenting the shields and Nolan firing the Meridian's refurbished cannons, they managed to disable the pirate vessel's engines, forcing it to retreat as the danger passed. Tessa's body flowed back into her humanoid form, though her skin remained dimmer than usual. "Are you hurt?" Nolan asked, surprising himself with his concern. "Energy depleted. Will regenerate." She drifted to the floor, actually sitting rather than floating for once. "Protection requires sacrifice." Nolan brought her water, unsure if it would help but wanting to offer something. "Why did you do that?" "You could have been killed." Her silver eyes met his. "You are mine to protect. This is not negotiable." That night, as the Meridian made emergency repairs at a small automated station, Nolan found Tessa in the observation deck, her skin slowly regaining its luminescence as she absorbed starlight. "I've been thinking about this whole mine business," he said, sitting beside her. "It's not ownership, is it?" Tessa turned her silver gaze to him. "Your language lacks precision. The closest word is bonded. When my people recognize another being as essential to their existence, they claim that being, it is deeper than your concept of family, more sacred than your idea of love." Nolan watched the stars reflect off her slowly brightening skin. "And you chose me because I rescued you?" "I recognized you," she corrected. The rescue was merely the moment of clarity. As they sat in comfortable silence, Nolan realized something had changed. The woman who had once been just a passenger on his ship now felt like something more, something he wasn't ready to name but couldn't ignore her hand. Warm and faintly glowing, found his in the darkness. "Rest, Nolan mean. I watch over you." For the first time in years, he felt truly safe. Starlit revelations, the Kalen outpost appeared on the horizon, sprawling space station built into the hollowed remnants of an asteroid. Nolan guided the Meridian toward the docking bay, while Tessa observed the approaching structure with evident curiosity. "Your kind gathers in such rigid formations," she commented, her skin rippling with analytical patterns. "Contained, structured, trapped in your own creations." "We call it civilization," Nolan replied with a wry smile. "Not everyone can float through space on a whim like your people." As they docked, he turned to her with concern. "The station will be crowded with different species. Many have never encountered someone like you. Stay close to me, and maybe try not to float or glow too obviously." Tessa's skin dimmed slightly, adopting a more human-like appearance, though still maintaining its subtle iridescence. "I will attempt discretion." "For your comfort, Nolan mean?" The station buzzed with activity traders bartering goods. Engineers repairing ships, travelers from dozens of worlds mingling in the central plaza. Nolan felt Tessa's presence behind him, unusually grounded as she walked rather than floated, though her silver eyes darted everywhere. Absorbing details with evident fascination, they were halfway to the parts dealer, when a commotion erupted near the station's medical bay. A frantic engineer was shouting about an accident, a coolant leak, trapping workers in a rapidly freezing compartment. "The emergency override isn't responding," someone called out. "They'll freeze before we can cut through." Before Nolan could react, Tessa was moving toward the gathered crowd. "Tessa, wait!" he called after her, but she was already approaching the sealed door. "Let me through," she said, her voice carrying a resonance that made the onlookers step aside unconsciously. "Can't help." The station security officer blocked her path. The temperature inside is dropping below survivable levels. Tessa's skin began to glow brighter, her pretense of humanity falling away. "I am not constrained by your limitations." With a fluid motion, she pressed herself against the sealed door. To the astonishment of everyone watching, her body seemed to flow like liquid. Seeping through the microscopic gaps in the door's seal, Nolan rushed forward but could only watch as she disappeared entirely into the sealed compartment. Long seconds passed. The crowd murmured in confusion and awe. Then, unexpectedly, the door slid open, revealing Tessa standing inside, her body radiating intense heat. Behind her, 3 workers huddled together, frost coating their clothing but very much alive. "Medical attention required," Tessa announced, her skin pulsing with bright energy patterns. "They will recover." As medical personnel rushed in, Nolan pulled Tessa aside. "What did you just do?" "Temperature regulation is basic," she replied, though her skin was dimmer than normal, suggesting the effort had cost her. "My form can adapt to preserve life." Later, in the privacy of the Meridian, Nolan confronted her. "You revealed yourself to everyone on the station. Why risk that for strangers?" Tessa's silver eyes regarded him with surprising tenderness. "They are yours." "What?" "I don't even know them. They are human, your kind. To protect what is mine, I must protect what matters to mine." Her skin rippled with soft colors. "Your happiness requires the well-being of your kind." Nolan sat heavily in the pilot's chair, a realization dawning. This bond thing. It's not just about keeping me physically safe, is it? Tessa drifted closer, her luminescence returning slowly. Protection encompasses all aspects. Physical, emotional, spiritual. As the Meridian disengaged from the station, carrying newly acquired parts and whispered stories of the strange woman who had saved 3 lives, Nolan found himself watching Tessa with new understanding. What had begun as an unwanted claim had evolved into something he was reluctant to name, something that made the vast emptiness of space feel less lonely. "Thank you," he said. Simply, Tessa's skin glowed with pleasure. "Mine is learning." Beyond the stars, the Meridian cruised through the shimmering tail of a comet, ice particles dancing across the viewport like tiny stars. 3 months had passed since Tessa had emerged from that pod, claiming Nolan as hers, and the once solitary captain found himself unable to imagine life without her constant, luminous presence. They had fallen into a comfortable rhythm, Nolan piloting the ship through familiar trade routes while Tessa enhanced its systems with her unique abilities. Her touch had transformed the aging vessel. Oxygen recyclers functioned at peak efficiency, engines hummed with renewed vigor, and even the synthetic coffee maker produced something almost palatable. Approaching the Veil Nebula, Nolan announced, adjusting their course. "Should be quite a sight." Tessa floated beside him, her silver eyes reflecting starlight. "The Veil holds danger," she said, her skin darkening with concern. "Radiation spikes beyond your tolerances." "The Meridian's shielding can handle it," he assured her. Though he'd traversed this route dozens of times, her skin rippled with doubt, but she didn't argue. Instead, she placed her hand over his on the controls, a gesture that had become familiar, comforting even. They were halfway through the nebula when the ship's alarms blared. The view screen filled with approaching vessels, angular, predatory ships with weapons primed. "Raiders," Nolan muttered, recognizing the configuration. They used the nebula's radiation to mask their approach. Tessa's body tensed, her skin hardening to its crystalline defensive state. "How many ships can you outrun?" "Not this many," he admitted, already calculating escape vectors. "And their weapons outclass ours." The lead raider ship fired a warning shot across their bow, followed by a transmission demanding immediate surrender. Nolan's mind raced through options, each more desperate than the last. "If we reroute power from life support to the engines?" "We might know," Tessa interrupted, her voice resonating with sudden authority. "There is another way." Before he could respond, she wrapped her arms around him, her form beginning to change, not hardening as before, but expanding, becoming more luminous, more ethereal. "What are you doing?" Nolan asked, feeling her warmth envelop him completely. "True protection," she whispered against his ear. "Bonding beyond physical." Her body dissolved into pure energy, flowing into him, through him. Nolan gasped as awareness expanded exponentially. Suddenly, he could feel the ship as an extension of himself. Could sense the Raider's vessel configurations, could perceive the nebula's currents and eddies with perfect clarity. "Tessa," he called, both aloud and within his mind. "We are one now," her voice resonated inside him. Temporary, but complete. Guide us. Understanding flowed between them without words. Nolan's hands moved across the controls with newfound precision, the Meridian responding instantly to commands he hadn't consciously given. They dove into the nebula's denser regions where radiation would scramble the Raiders. Targeting systems, the ship moved impossibly, dancing through radiation pockets that should have been lethal, finding paths that weren't visible to normal sensors. With each maneuver, Nolan felt Tessa's presence guiding him, her knowledge of cosmic energies merging with his experience as a pilot. The Raiders fired blindly into the colorful gases, their shots dissipating harmlessly in the distance. Within minutes, the Meridian had outmaneuvered them completely, merging on the far side of the nebula, untouched. As danger receded, Nolan felt Tessa's energy begin to separate from his. Her form coalesced beside him, dimmer than he'd ever seen her, almost translucent. "Tessa?" He reached for her, hands passing partially through her fading form. "What's happening?" "Bonding. Takes energy," she managed, her voice weak. "Will, ... regenerate, ... eventually." "How long?" Panic edged into his voice as her form continued to fade.
"A star."
"Need stars." She whispered. Understanding came immediately. Nolan set course for the nearest star system, pushing the Meridian's engines beyond safety parameters. As they approached the young, bright star, he carried Tessa's now ethereal form to the observation deck, positioning her where starlight streamed unfiltered through the viewport. "Please," he whispered, watching her translucent body absorb the radiance, "come back to me." Hours passed as Nolan watched anxiously. Gradually, incrementally, Tessa's form began to solidify, her skin regaining its iridescence as she absorbed the star's energy. When her silver eyes finally opened, focusing on his face, Nolan realized he was crying. "Mine," she whispered, reaching up to touch his tear-streaked cheek. "Yes," he agreed, catching her hand in his. "In your mind, too." "If that's how it works." Tessa's skin glowed with a new pattern he'd never seen before. Complex. Swirls of gold and silver intertwining like constellations. "It is not how it usually works," she admitted. "But for us, it is right." As the Meridian drifted in the young star's embrace, Nolan held Tessa close, no longer just a passenger on his ship, no longer just a curiosity from the depths of space, but something he now had words for. "Partner. Protector, beloved. Where shall we go now?" he asked, looking out at the infinite possibilities stretching before them. Tessa's skin shimmered with renewed vitality. "Everywhere," she said simply. "Together."